All right, let's get straight into this.
Oh my God.
How many cell phones a day are selling, smartphones are selling a day in India right now?
Every day?
Every day.
About 1 million?
About 1 million. How many of those are running Flipkart?
Most of them.
And how many of them ran Flipkart a year ago?
You know, it's interesting. So last year, if you look at all of our transactions, probably 15 to 20% maximum was mobile.
A
year ago, in July. This year, it's 70%.
70%.
70.
How is that growth possible? What is going on in India?
It's, you know, I mean, it's flipped the company, basically. You went from a company that had a majority of desktop usage a year ago to a company that basically is mostly mobile at this point of time. And the most important driver of this is low-cost Android phones. So you have a tremendous number of low-cost Android phones just flooding the market. Every single Indian out there is actually buying some of these things. By the way, we have about 150 million smartphones, which is pretty good. But the country's population is 1.2 billion. So 3 years from now, you'll probably get to 500 million smartphones, which means 3 years from now, we'll be 45% smartphone penetration. And so then it's just a staggering amount of space still to cover. Every single one of them, when they come online, they want to share, message, and buy. In India, if you're in a small town somewhere and you want to buy a Samsung refrigerator or a Nike shoe, there is no offline retail store you can go for hours in any direction to get it. The only way these people can buy anything actually is through e-commerce. And so it's not even a question of convenience. E-commerce is actually a question of just sheer, this is the only choice you have. This is the way we can actually open up the entire world's market to India.
Wow. How many employees?
It's probably around 30,000 now, approximately.
30,000 employees.
Yeah. Out of which 3,000 to 4,000 is core tech and engineering. We have a huge delivery, warehousing, supply chain setup, which if you add all of it, it's a much bigger company.
You just hired a vice president from Yahoo today. Tell me about what your global footprint is going to look like in the next 18 months, because it sounds like you're just sucking as much talent into this as Mark Zuckerberg doesn't leave on the table, right?
Well, I think the key thing to think about, and I'll actually step back and just make sure we understand the scale of Flipkart. Flipkart is the largest e-commerce company in India. Flipkart is approximately 40 to 50, depending on how you count, 40 to 50% of all e-commerce in India. E-commerce is only 1% of all commerce in India. So you are 50% of 1%. So the total addressable market is just gigantic, just
Can you
significant.
compare it to eBay, for instance, or Amazon here in the United States? What are the numbers here?
It's hard for me to have very specific numbers, but I can tell you, like China, the penetration probably is anywhere from 7 to 9%. And something like Alibaba probably has 70% market share. So we are 50% of 1%. We have, even if we get to a steady state place, we probably have, the whole market has to grow 8 to 10 times before it actually gets to 10% of total commerce. And this is in a country where infrastructure has significant issues, so it's not like loads of people have options in terms of offline retail anyways. And so that's basically Flipkart. Now, a majority of it, 70% transactions are mobile, so it's in effect a very significantly mobile company. This, needs a very diverse group of people to actually help build it. And so we are attracting talent from pretty much across the world right now. And all of them are drawn by the opportunity of being in a place, in a country, in a company that's at a tremendous inflection point in history. You're talking about 20% of the world's population which is going to take off, right? And so everybody is attracted to that. They're attracted to the fact that it's pretty much mobile only. And the problems that we are trying to solve are very mobile. I contend, in fact, that India is both the past and the future. Infrastructurally, it's a few years behind US, but in terms of how it's using mobile, it's a few years ahead. So folks who are actually going to solve this problem at Flipkart and other places in India are basically time traveling to the future. A few years from now, they will be ready.
Explain what you're learning from being in India about mobile users because it's a mobile conference. What's the difference between being a couple years ahead in India?
Significant difference. You know, there's a difference between saying that there's an app for everything and that we can actually use it to buy stuff and actually doing it. Let me tell you about a dinner table. I was sitting at a dinner table with a bunch of people, and one of them actually said to the other, hey, there's an IPL cricket game going on tomorrow. Do you want to come? 2-3 people nodded. He literally did 3 taps on a particular app in front of me, and he had bought the tickets. And then the other guy said, hey, there's I have to fly out tomorrow, but you know, there's a strike going on. There's another guy at the corner of the table who just did like 30-second, a couple of taps on the app, and he bought the ticket for the other guy. I wanted to get a blood test. What do you do here when you want to get a blood test? You go stand in line for labs, then you go and actually get it done, and then you wait for your reports. In India, what do? You tap on an app. It actually, you know, a technician comes to your house in 90 minutes. They actually do the blood sample, and then you get a text message and an email with the blood report. This is mobile only. This is being mainstream. Every single thing that you can think of is delivered only through mobile. You want organic cheese? Tap on an app. You want to actually buy your groceries? Tap on an app. And everybody's doing it. This is just mainstream usage. That's the difference. Having apps and having people starting to use it is one thing. Mainstream usage for some of these things is incredible. And in a country which has actually gone from no internet to mobile internet. So I believe there's completely new paradigms that are going to show up in shopping very soon in this ecosystem.
We first met each other when you worked at Google. What's the difference between working at an American company and working at Flipkart?
You know, it's culturally very similar, to be honest. The couple of things to think about in India are 50% of India's population is below the age of 25. Okay, if you up it, 70% of India's population is below the age of 35. So the floor that I am on, the average age is probably like mid-20s somewhere. Very young people. Most of the leaders, I would say almost 30-40% of them have come from Bay Area one way or the other. So they bring with them the same ethos and the same culture that we're used to. The work environment is very similar. It's a very Anglo-centric environment, which means that, you know, English is the primary language. Folks who actually come in, they feel very comfortable. It's the same kind of setup to work in. But then the problems you're solving are very different. There's only 12% credit card penetration, so you have to figure out how to actually even sell things to people.
Stop right there. 12% credit card penetration. That means most of the users don't have credit cards.
No. So how do you do e-commerce?
Okay. How do we do it?
So we built what we call cash on delivery. The whole idea is you can buy anything you want to, and then a delivery person comes to your house, delivers the stuff, takes cash from you, and then goes back. Or you can use that cash to even fulfill payment mechanisms and stuff like that. So you have to build like a whole new
system. Are we going to see you announce some sort of cryptocurrency for India soon? You know, I mean, are they going to go from no credit to having some weird cryptocurrency?
I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens. Bitcoin. But to be honest, we have just such deeper problems to solve right now. You know, there's a swath of the country that doesn't have any access to internet. There's a swath of the country that actually you can't even get to no matter what infrastructure you build. If we poured in all the money that we could think of pouring into infrastructure, we would still not be able to build the infrastructure in terms of warehouses and delivery systems. So we have to build a platform. And we have to let people actually become companies on top of us. Yeah. So there's a lot of work there. There's a lot of work on mobile. Mobile centricity is very different. So think about this. What do you think shopping really was? Forget today, it's e-commerce, but what was shopping? You used to go out with your friends. You used to say, well, I like the blue one, I don't like the green one. What do you think? I like it. You should probably buy that. Then you would talk to the store owner and say, hey, what's the refund policy? How does it work? Then you would buy, he would give you the shoes, you would wear it, do the transaction, and walk. When you were talking to your friends, you got validation. Yeah. When you actually talked to the store owner, you did a transaction. When you actually decided to wear it immediately, that was gratification. That was shopping. What is shopping now? You sit in a closed room in front of a glass slab and keep clicking buttons and think, like, it's not a social, it's an isolating experience. Yeah. How will it become like shopping really was? It will become like shopping in mobile. Where can that happen? In the only country, the leading country in the world where the largest number of transactions are happen on mobile, India. And who can do it? Mobile, Flipkart. And so fundamentally, mobile shopping has to be reinvented. It has to be rethought in terms of a very personal, transaction-oriented, hyper-local, social experience. And a mobile-centric audience and user base can do that. That's what we got. So we have a tremendous potential.
Let's come back to that, because I wrote a book called Age of Context, and I have a feeling you have some thoughts on personalization and contextualization. Tell me about the tech stack at Flipkart, because I work at Rackspace and we have a lot of e-commerce companies on us, and I know the incredible scales that we're dealing with keeping e-commerce going. I have a feeling you're in a whole different league. Tell me about what the data centers look like and what's running on them.
You know, I'll give you some sense of the scale that we look at. When last year in the Diwali is basically the equivalent of like, you know, Thanksgiving here in terms of shopping. And so we did like what we call the Big Billion Day. It far outstripped every single expectation we had, and to some extent, we actually disrupted the whole fabric of the infrastructure and we had the best infrastructure in the country at that point. It took weeks for the company to actually recover to get there. That's the kind of scale we used to have in Big Billion Day, which is basically the equivalent of China's Singles Day and stuff like that. Yeah. This year, every quarter, we do a mobile-only sale day, just a simple buy only from mobile sale day. It's the same scale as Big Billion Day in October last year. We do this every quarter again and again and again.
So your numbers are going like this?
Our numbers are going like this. And no matter, I think for large extent, you know, our ability to deal with demand is all that's constraining demand. To some extent, it's just supply that's constraining demand today. Yeah. No matter how much we throw at it, it comes back.
You're running product. How are you running this? Are you running it on Hadoop? Well, tell me a little bit about the technology.
Well, I mean, in terms of the actual stack, we are investing a lot into our data center technologies. You know, we have a data center migration effort that's going on. We have our own data stores, you know, pretty much Kansas equivalent things that we are building. We have our own machine learning models. We have a pretty strong team of some of the best product architects who are actually working deeply on machine learning and personalization and data analytics that we are actually using. We have a pretty strong analytics team. So we're very deep in terms of our tech stack. I think in many ways share a lot of the ethos that Bay Area companies share, in that we believe that we will solve problems through sheer product and technology innovation and not just through operational work. Nothing wrong with being operational, but ultimately you will hit the constraints of tech. And so some very fundamental work is going on in that space.
So it sounds like you're doing the same thing that Facebook had to do, which is build your own programming languages and build your own infrastructure, your own software infrastructure.
We have to. I mean, in many ways, some of the work, I wouldn't go as far as saying programming languages, et cetera, so as far as now, but I would say that infrastructurally, the kind of scale we are looking at and the way we are exploding, we have no option. It's not easy to rely on existing technologies and be able to scale the way we are doing. So we are investing a lot into that. And by the way, Bay Area has a lot of that kind of expertise. And so we look at folks from here to come over and actually help us build this stuff. Ultimately, it's a global company that serves Indian consumers, not an Indian company.
It's obvious you're hiring because
I am hiring
somebody from Yahoo.
Yeah.
Tell me about your approach to contextual software, because the mobile phone has, what, 9 sensors in it? This lets you serve a customer in a different way. Tell me what you're thinking about there and how a mobile customer is going to be different in 2 or 3 years than in the past.
You know, I think it's very interesting because if you think about search in the desktop world, like a lot of people, like you want to watch a movie, what do? You go on search and you say, I want to watch a movie, it gives you a list, then you look and then you find out where it's playing, etc. But if you're on a mobile phone, what do? The phone, you look up at the phone and it says, hey, it's Friday evening, you're standing at the corner of Shoreline and El Camino. Typically, you like these kind of movies. Here's 5 theaters and 6 movies at the intersection of your interests that are playing. Do you want to go there? Tap and you can buy a ticket. It's a very fundamentally different way of looking. If you apply this into shopping, the world that we should go to is the world where we should be able to say, I have integrated with your calendar. I know you're going clubbing tonight. You look like you probably want to buy a bunch of dresses. Here's 5 options. Do you want to pick one of them? And you tap on one of them, and 90 minutes later, somebody delivers it to you. Yeah. That's the way shopping will have to be. We'll have to start figuring out, with the user's permission, of course, in a sensitive way, you know, what their needs are. You know, did they run out of milk? You know, what's the regular intervals at which they buy diapers? What kind of clothes are they interested in? How can we actually serve them? And then we have to automatically start giving them this information in a way that's most easiest for them.
Yeah. When I do my talk, because I wrote a book called Age of Context, partly because of the work that you were doing at Google, I asked the audience at the end, how many people are freaked out by the talk, you know, which is just what you just said, pretty much. And a third of the hands go up and say, I am freaked out about what you guys are doing. I'm freaked out about self-driving cars. I'm freaked out about sensors being put on me or around me. I'm freaked out about the privacy implications. What are you hearing in India? Is the approach to privacy different than here? And How do you think this is going to play out?
To be very honest, I think that India, there is a lot more maturity that's needed in actually being sensitive to privacy issues in general in India today. I think that the approach to privacy at the top end of the market is very similar, but large swaths of the people are getting their phones for the first time. They really don't even know what kind of permissions they're opting into. I don't know how these permissions are actually being used, etc. The top of the pile companies, the best companies, are actually working really hard to make sure they actually, get information in a sensitive way, take the right permissions, and offer value in return. But it's a work in progress. It's a lot of evolution. I would say sensitivity-wise, the American market is way ahead in terms of using it. Having said that, the truth is, this is a space where, in mobile especially, that you can use these signals and really create tremendous value. And if there is something that I think here, in US we should freak out about, it's the fact that you are seeing a market evolve, you're seeing mobile use cases evolve, because a large swath of the population, I think the latest number was 90% of all internet traffic was mobile only in India. So a large swath of the population is using only mobile devices. The market that people are serving here in the US is significantly majority desktop. So the worry, if I was a company here trying to build stuff, I would worry about the fact, would I become outdated? Would I be disrupted by some mobile-only company that will pop out when the American market is ready? Would my tech stack evolve? Would I be able to reinvent my infrastructure? That's the big question that a large number of companies here have. Their audience, their users don't necessarily demand the kind of mobile-onlyness in the kind of the mainstream way that Indian audiences are demanding right now.
They're starting to. More than 50% of Facebook's users now are mobile. So, and I see this. Where should we go with this? Tell me a little bit more about privacy and dig in where you think the utility is going to show up to convince people to go over that, I call it the freaky line, and convince people that this hyper-personalization on mobile phones is going to be a good thing.
Well, I mean, it's all about the utility, right, at the end of the day. I mean, we just launched a feature called Visual Search recently. And what it does is, you walk around, you see somebody who's wearing a nice dress and you want to buy it, what do? There's no option. You can actually just take the Flipkart app, take a photograph, it'll search our inventory, and we will show you dresses like that. Now, the interesting point there would be, could there be some kind of a connection that could be done between the dress the person's wearing and their tastes? Could we actually start figuring out, based on the anonymous number of photos that we get from everybody, and what the trends are in terms of fashion? Could we actually use that information to actually drive sales in a particular way? So I think that, first of all, data can be used in incredibly thoughtful ways. We have some of the largest repository of data in the country. Second, you can opt in the user into very thoughtful, privacy-sensitive, permissions, and then be able to use that data in interesting ways. I think the fashion category, clothes category, is very prime for disruption that way. Flipkart today already is one of the largest fashion and clothes retailers in the country, offline or online. In fact, we have a majority of offline retailers who have shown up on Flipkart now. They're using it as a platform. And so then if that's happening, we could probably start dictating or understanding trends, fashion trends, in ways that nobody could ever have done before. There's a billion people who want to wear clothes.
If I was sitting in the audience, I would be thinking to myself, how could I disrupt you?
Yeah.
How could I do a competitor to Flipkart and better, because the numbers ahead of you are so incredible? Or how do I build on top of you? How do I be in your ecosystem? Are you guys thinking of building a developer platform?
Yes.
Are you building an ecosystem of companies that will do various things? And what do you think those companies will look like?
Sure, absolutely.
What are you going to encourage?
There are two reactions to that. One, if really the place to disrupt, if you actually look at the Asian market, especially Indian market, is mobile. So you should really focus on trying to figure out what kind of use cases, in whether it's shopping or something else you're doing, that's completely mobile only. And if you can actually do that, you will disrupt any company whose infrastructure comes from a previous decade in any ways. So it's an area that you should really focus on. Now, in terms of actually building on top of us, etc., we we intend to, and our ambition is to be a pure platform. We have a seller developer API that we recently launched. If you look at a fulfillment system, I'm not going to be able to deliver through Meghalaya, which is the northeastern corner of India, to Kerala, because the utter lack of infrastructure will require billions and billions of dollars to go into it. The only way this will work is if I can let that one guy in the northeastern corner of India, who is an entrepreneur, build a last mile delivery system. And so the question is, what do sellers need? These sellers are coming online. 1 million sellers are going to show up online. What will they need? They'll need cataloging. They'll need packaging. They'll need last mile delivery. They'll need customer service help. They will need all sorts of things. Our job should be to build a platform that allows people to actually build these kind of companies. If you're interested in those kind of companies, come talk to us. We have a platform coming up. You can build these things and be successful too.
And on that note, we're out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was an awesome conversation.
Thank you.
Hope you liked it.